World of Tanks, how to do more damage. There's many ways to do more damage in the game. I've compiled a list and I present it here. One way to do it is to fire at lower tier tanks. The damage doesn't matter what tier you're firing at. 100 hit points of a tier 8 is the same as 100 hit points for a tier 9. Not the same for experience. You would get different experience. But for damage, it's the same. So you have an advantage at firing at lower tier tanks because you are more likely to penetrate their armor. Fire at weaker tanks, which includes light, medium, and SPG. For the same reason, they have weaker armor. You're more likely to do damage or to hit the rear or the side armor. Fire at tanks with the most hit points. If you have to choose between two vehicles, two potential targets, go for the one that has the most hit points, because if you go for the one that has fewer hit points, you might not get the total amount of damage, potential damage from your shot. Use tanks with derp guns. Derp guns can do a lot of damage. They have poor gun handling, but in my experience, I usually got more damage with the derp gun than not. They can be more difficult to fire. Use the gun module that does the most damage. Usually, you have a choice of 2 or 3 different guns for your vehicle. Choose the one that does the most damage. It's basically the way it is. I always choose the one that does the highest penetration, but it doesn't mean it does the most damage. Sometimes the higher penetrating gun does lower damage, and the lower penetrating gun does higher damage, which is the way they balance it out. Use gold and premium rounds, obviously, because they penetrate more often. Use Deadeye perk to increase the chance of fire or ammo racking, because it gives you a 1% or 3% chance of a critical hit. Aim for engines, fuel, and ammo racks, again, to increase the chance of fire or ammo racking. Use HE rounds against light tanks and SPG because they usually do more damage. Play higher tier tanks because tier 10 tanks do a lot more damage than tier 1 tanks. Play heavy tanks and tank destroyers. They usually do more damage. Play grand battles. You're going to do more damage per battle in grand battles than in random battles. Platoon with friends and work together. Friends can help you do more damage. One reason why is because if you ride side by side, you're probably going to last longer in the game as opposed to riding around all by yourself. Ram vehicles, use controlled impact skill for the driver. What I do is shoot and ram. You'll hear me say it in the video, shoot and ram, shoot and ram. You shoot the vehicle while you're headed straight toward it and ram it. That's one of the reasons why you use the auto aim. People who use a sniper mode, they usually sit and stop their vehicle and they aim carefully. They can't do the shoot and ram, so they lose a lot of potential damage. Reduce reload time and aim time. It increases your DPM. Fire faster to increase DPM. I notice streamers, popular streamers, they don't necessarily fire as soon as the ammo is reloaded. I always fire as soon as my ammo is reloaded. You have to set up a position, aim, and fire. I make sure that I set up my position and aim while it's still reloading, and then as soon as it's done reloading, I fire. A lot of streamers, they wait until it's reloaded, then they set up, and then they aim. They reduce their DPM by doing so. Play a faster game, do more damage. Use autoloaders because you're going to have some games where an autoloader will give you more damage. For example, if it's a fast-paced game and you only get a few shots in, your autoloader might do a lot of damage in a short amount of time that the other players can't do. Stay in the game longer. My experience, if you want to increase damage, stay in the game longer. That's what gives you the most damage. Because at the end of the game, the enemy has fewer hit points. They're easier to take out. There's more one shots. You're going to do more damage if you sit in the game longer and take fewer damage yourself. Use distance sniping positions, avoid brawling, and stay unspotted. You're going to do a lot more damage if your allies are doing all the spotting. People who spot do less damage. Don't be a spotter. Be far away. Let your allies do the spotting, and let them be the targets. Use vents, BIA, food, consumables, etc. to improve gun handling and reduce reload times. To reduce reload times, you increase your DPM, and if you reduce your aim time, you can increase your DPM because the longer the distance that you're firing, the longer it takes to aim. And there are cases where it takes longer to aim than to reload, which you'll see with autoloaders. Might take 1 or 2 seconds between shots, but it might take more than 1 or 2 seconds to aim over a long distance. Okay, so those are my tips for how to do more damage in World of Tanks. If you want to see more guides and tutorials, go to cheapbooks.cc, look for World of Tanks, and you will see guides and tutorials. I've written most of them, and if you want to make a contribution, you're welcome to make a contribution. And I also own cheapbooks.com, which is a website that lists books and textbooks. If you have any questions or comments, please post below.